You're sitting there right now, looking at your phone, going over the same conversation again and again in your mind, searching for the exact moment when things changed. You're trying to understand what happened, why the person you care about so deeply continues to pull away just when you feel like you're finally getting closer. You keep asking yourself what you could have done differently, what you could have said better, and why your love seems unable to reach them. You've tried everything you know. You've expressed your feelings with patience and honesty. You've given them the space they asked for. You've remained consistent, supportive, and understanding. You've tried to be the person who makes them feel safe. You've adjusted yourself in ways you never thought you would have to. You've stretched your emotional limits, hoping that eventually they would recognize your effort and finally let you in. But somehow, the same pattern keeps repeating. The more you move toward them, the more they seem to disappear behind an emotional wall that you cannot break through. It feels like trying to hold on to something invisible. The harder you try to keep it close, the faster it slips away. Like holding water in your hands, the tighter your grip becomes, the more it escapes. And this is the part that many people never explain about loving someone with an avoidant attachment style. Your love may be sincere. Your intentions may be pure. Your desire for connection may come from a place of care, but to their nervous system, that closeness can sometimes feel overwhelming. It can activate fears they may not even consciously understand. Every message you send because you miss them. Every attempt to talk about your feelings. Every moment where you try to create deeper emotional connection. Instead of their brain automatically interpreting those actions as love and safety, something inside them may interpret it as pressure, expectation, or danger. Today, we're going to explore the one powerful shift that can completely change the way you show up in this dynamic. This is not about manipulating someone. It is not about playing mind games or pretending you don't care. This is about changing your own emotional position, understanding the psychology behind avoidant behavior, and taking back the power you may have unknowingly given away. This is about understanding the brain, understanding attachment, and most importantly, reconnecting with yourself. Think about a cat for a moment. Imagine you walk into a room and see a cat sitting peacefully in the corner. You move toward it, trying to pet it. You call its name. You reach your hand out. What happens most of the time? The cat runs away. It hides. It creates distance. But then something interesting happens. The moment you stop chasing it, the moment you sit down and focus on something else, the cat slowly comes closer. It walks toward you. It rubs against your leg. Suddenly, it wants your attention. Human beings can sometimes operate in a similar way, especially people with avoidant attachment patterns. Right now, you may be trapped in what psychologists call the anxious avoidance cycle. One person becomes the pursuer and the other becomes the withdrawer. One person reaches for reassurance, while the other person feels the need to create distance. You move closer. They step back. You ask for emotional connection. They ask for more space. You try harder. They pull away even more. And eventually, both people become exhausted. One feels abandoned and rejected. The other feels overwhelmed and trapped. But underneath this pattern, something much deeper is happening. Let's look at what happens inside the brain. There is a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. This part of the brain plays a major role in detecting fear and responding to threats. In a healthy and secure relationship, when someone we love comes closer, our brain often responds with feelings of comfort, connection, and bonding. Chemicals like oxytocin help create a sense of trust, warmth, and emotional safety. For someone with avoidant attachment, however, their emotional wiring may have developed differently. Often, this begins during childhood. Maybe they grew up with a caregiver who was emotionally unavailable. Maybe affection came with conditions. Maybe they experienced a parent who was controlling, intrusive, or overwhelmed by emotions. Maybe they learned that depending on someone meant disappointment, losing independence, or experiencing pain. So their brain created a protective strategy. It learned that emotional closeness could equal danger. It learned that vulnerability could lead to hurt. It learned that needing someone could mean losing control. Because of this, intimacy can sometimes activate their defense system rather than their bonding system. When you send a message saying, "I miss you," you may be expressing love and affection. But their nervous system may not only hear the words, it may also feel the emotional responsibility behind them. When you ask, "Where is this relationship going?" you may be looking for reassurance, but their body may experience it as pressure. Their stress response can become activated, causing them to feel the urge to escape, shut down, or create distance. From your perspective, you are simply trying to love them. From their perspective, their nervous system may be trying to protect them. And this is where the most painful misunderstanding happens. When they finally pull away, disappear, become distant, or create separation, they often feel a sense of relief. Their body relaxes, the emotional pressure decreases, their nervous system settles, and because they feel calmer, they may mistakenly believe the relationship itself was the problem. They may think, "I feel better now that there is distance, so maybe this person was wrong for me." But the truth is more complicated. The relief does not necessarily mean they stopped caring. The relief often comes from escaping the emotional intensity they didn't know how to manage. They confuse the removal of pressure with the removal of love. Meanwhile, you are left hurting. You are checking your phone constantly. You are replaying conversations. You are analyzing every word, every pause, every change in their behavior. You wonder if you were too much, if you asked for too much, or if you somehow pushed them away. And this is how the cycle continues. As long as you keep responding from fear, chasing harder every time they retreat, the pattern remains alive. So how do you break this cycle? You have to make a shift that sounds simple but requires incredible emotional strength. You have to stop chasing, but understand something important before you misunderstand this message. This is not about pretending you don't care. This is not about using silence as a weapon. This is not about ignoring someone while secretly waiting beside your phone, hoping they finally panic and come back. That is still chasing, just in a different form. The real transformation is much deeper. It is about reclaiming your energy. It is about returning your attention back to yourself. It is about becoming emotionally grounded enough that your happiness is no longer controlled by whether someone moves closer or pulls away. When you stop trying to convince someone of your worth, you begin to embody your worth. And that is the shift that changes everything. Think of your relationship like a constant tug of war. You are standing on one side, holding the rope with every ounce of strength you have. You are pulling harder and harder, hoping they will finally come toward you. Your hands are hurting, your energy is drained, and you are emotionally exhausted from trying to keep the connection alive. On the other side, they are holding the rope too, but instead of moving closer, they are resisting. They are pulling away, creating distance, and protecting the space they feel they need. The rope between you represents the relationship itself. Every moment of chasing, convincing, explaining, and trying harder adds more tension. What you need to do is something that feels almost impossible. You need to let go of the rope, and when you do, two powerful things happen at the same time. First, your suffering begins to end. The pain in your hands disappears. The constant emotional struggle starts to fade. You are no longer spending all your energy trying to hold on to someone who keeps moving away. For the first time, you can step back, breathe, and reconnect with your own peace. But there is something else that happens. They lose the resistance they were fighting against. For the first time in the entire dynamic, they are no longer reacting to your pursuit. There is no pressure coming toward them. There is no emotional force they need to escape from. And suddenly, they have to experience their own feelings. They have to sit with their own thoughts. They have to carry their own emotional weight. In real life, this shift looks very different from trying to make someone jealous or trying to create a reaction. It means you stop reaching out constantly, not as a punishment, but because you are finally choosing to invest your energy back into yourself. You stop searching for signs on their social media. You stop asking other people what they are doing. You stop going through old conversations late at night, analyzing every sentence and wondering where everything changed. Every bit of emotional energy you have been sending toward them, like a lighthouse desperately searching the ocean for a lost ship, you turn around. That light comes back home. You begin shining it on yourself. And when you do this, something interesting happens. You create space. For so long, you have been the person filling every empty moment. You sent the good morning messages. You made the plans, you started the conversations, you carried the emotional responsibility of keeping the connection alive. You became the constant presence. You became the person always reaching, and they became the person always responding with distance. But when you stop filling every gap, when you stop chasing every silence, the entire dynamic changes. At first, they may actually feel exactly what they believed they wanted: freedom, relief, space. They may feel calmer because there is no longer a feeling of emotional expectation coming toward them. But then time passes, a few days, maybe a week, and something begins to shift. The silence that once felt peaceful starts feeling noticeable. The space they wanted so badly suddenly feels different because it is no longer filled with your attention, your warmth, and your presence. The distance they created becomes an empty space they now have to experience. This creates something in psychology called a prediction error. Their mind had created an expectation about you. They believed you would always be there. They believed you would always reach out. They believed you would always try again. You were predictable. You were familiar. You were emotionally available. But now, something has changed. They cannot understand the new version of you. Their usual expectation no longer matches reality, and the human brain struggles with uncertainty. Suddenly, questions begin appearing in their mind. Where did you go? Why did you stop reaching out? What are you doing? Are you okay? Have you started moving forward? Did you find someone else? Do you see what happened? For so long, you were the one consumed with thoughts about them. But by creating healthy distance, you create a situation where they finally have space to think about you. You enter their awareness in a completely different way, because imagination can sometimes become more powerful than reality. When you were always present, they saw the complete human being in front of them. They saw your emotions, your needs, your frustrations, and your desire for closeness. But when there is distance, something changes. You become less predictable. You become something they cannot immediately access. You become a question mark, and the mind naturally tries to fill in unanswered questions. They may begin projecting their own fears, memories, and emotions onto that empty space. They may start realizing something important. Space is not only freedom. Space can also become loneliness. Now let's talk about dopamine. Many people misunderstand dopamine and think it is simply the chemical responsible for pleasure. But dopamine is more connected to desire, motivation, and anticipation. It rises when we are seeking something, wondering about something, or waiting for something to happen. During the relationship, you may have become extremely reliable. You were always available. Whenever they reached for connection, your love was there. And while that comes from a beautiful place, constant availability can sometimes remove the feeling of anticipation. Think about a vending machine. You know exactly what happens when you put money in. You know the result. There is no mystery. There is no curiosity. But uncertainty creates stronger emotional reactions. When you step back and stop being constantly accessible, the dynamic changes. You are no longer someone they can automatically predict. They begin wondering. They begin noticing. They begin feeling the absence of what was always available before. However, this is where many people make a mistake. After some time passes, the avoidant partner may eventually reach out, but they usually do not return with a dramatic apology. They may not suddenly confess everything they feel. Often, they come back in small ways. A simple message, a random meme, a "hey stranger," a reaction to your story, a small attempt to reopen the door. But understand what this moment really is. It is often a test. They may be checking whether the connection is still available. They may be looking for reassurance that they still have access to your attention and affection. They want to know if the emotional safety they had before is still waiting for them. And this is where the old pattern can easily restart. Because you have been missing them, you have been waiting, you have been hoping for this moment. So when that small message finally appears, your first instinct may be to respond immediately. You may want to explain everything. You may want to ask where they have been. You may want to tell them how much you missed them. But if you immediately return to the same role, you communicate something without saying a word. You show them that nothing has changed. You show them that they can disappear, return whenever they want, and still receive the same amount of love and attention. The cycle begins again. The goal is not to punish them. The goal is not to make them afraid of losing you. The goal is to become someone who no longer abandons themselves just to keep someone else close. Because the moment you stop chasing from fear and start choosing yourself from strength, the entire relationship dynamic begins to transform. Their emotional defenses can immediately return, and before you know it, they may disappear again because the same old pattern has been activated. So the question becomes, how do you respond when they come back with a small sign of attention? The answer is not to punish them. It is not to become cold or play a game. It is to match their level of effort while staying connected to your own self-respect. If they send you a random meme, you don't need to respond with a long conversation. A simple reaction is enough. No over-explaining. No trying to restart the entire connection. No pouring all your excitement and emotions into a small gesture. If they send a message saying, "Hey," you don't have to immediately jump back into the role you had before. Take your time. Respond calmly. Something as simple as, "Hey, what's up?" is enough. The energy is different now. You are no longer rushing to prove that you are still available, and this creates a new experience for them. They begin wondering, why aren't they as excited as before? Why aren't they asking where I disappeared to? Why aren't they trying to pull me closer? This creates an opportunity for them to take responsibility for rebuilding the connection, because if they truly want your presence, they will have to do more than send small signals. They will have to make an effort. They will have to ask meaningful questions. They will have to initiate conversations. They will have to call. They will have to make plans and show through their actions that they actually want to be part of your life. You are no longer rewarding minimum effort with maximum love. You are showing their mind that genuine connection requires genuine investment. But let's say something changes. Let's say they begin stepping up. They start reaching out more. They start making plans. They begin showing more consistency. This is where many people fall back into the same trap. The moment they finally receive the attention they have been craving, they become so relieved that they forget everything they learned. They immediately remove their boundaries. They accept anything because they are afraid that saying no will make the person leave again. They think, finally, they're back. I can't risk losing this. So they start abandoning themselves. They become available at every moment. They ignore their own needs. They stop expressing what bothers them. They reshape themselves to make the other person comfortable. But this is exactly how the next painful cycle begins. Because attracting someone's attention is not the hardest part. The real challenge is creating a relationship where there is mutual respect. Without respect, attraction cannot survive. You need to understand something important about avoidant psychology. Many avoidant individuals are not drawn towards someone who completely loses themselves for them. This is not because they are heartless or intentionally cruel. It is because, deep down, many of them carry a fear of being trapped in a relationship where they feel responsible for another person's entire emotional world. When you have no boundaries, when you constantly sacrifice yourself to keep them happy, their mind may not interpret that as love. They may experience it as pressure. They may feel like they are becoming responsible for someone else's happiness, and that can activate the very fears that make them pull away. This is why boundaries are so important. A boundary is not a punishment. It is not a wall designed to keep someone away. A healthy boundary is simply a clear understanding of where you end and where another person begins. And surprisingly, strong boundaries can actually make an avoidant person feel safer. Why? Because boundaries communicate something powerful. They show that you are a complete person. They show that you can love someone without losing yourself. They show that you have your own identity, your own values, and your own life. You are not trying to consume them. You are not trying to control them. You are choosing to stand beside them. So you learn to say no when something doesn't work for you. If they call late at night and suddenly want to see you, you don't have to drop everything out of fear that they will disappear again. You can calmly say, "I would love to spend time with you, but tonight I'm already settling down. Let's plan something for another day." No anger, no guilt, no fear, just self-respect. If they make a comment that crosses a line, you don't have to laugh along just to keep the peace. You can calmly say, "I don't appreciate that. Please don't speak to me that way." And then you move forward. No long lecture, no emotional explosion, no attempt to convince them. You simply communicate your standard and honor it. This kind of behavior can be surprising to someone with avoidant patterns because it sends a completely different message. It says, "This person is not afraid of losing me. This person values themselves. This person can love me, but they will not abandon themselves for me." And that energy is powerful. The biggest shift happens when you stop focusing only on whether they choose you. Instead, you begin asking yourself, are they showing me the kind of love I deserve? Are their actions matching their words? Are they someone I genuinely want in my life? The moment you make this shift, everything changes. You are no longer standing there hoping to be selected. You become someone who is also choosing. But now we reach the most important truth, a truth that has nothing to do with whether they return. Everything discussed today can create a powerful change. Creating space, holding your boundaries, and refusing to accept crumbs may cause someone who took your presence for granted to finally recognize your value. Human behavior often follows patterns, but there is a deeper question you have to ask yourself. Why do you want someone who only realizes your importance when you disappear? The real power of this transformation is not that it brings them back. The real power is that it brings you back to yourself. When you stop endlessly giving your energy to someone who cannot fully receive it, that energy returns to you. It begins healing your emotional world. It helps calm your nervous system. It reminds you of the person you were before you became consumed by trying to understand someone else. And then something unexpected can happen. Maybe one day they come back. Maybe they call you. Maybe they finally express regret. Maybe they finally offer the attention and affection you spent so long hoping for. But instead of feeling desperate for that moment, you may find yourself looking at your phone with a completely different perspective. You may realize you don't need their validation anymore. You may realize that what you believed was intense love was sometimes anxiety, uncertainty, and fear mixed together. And that realization is freedom. The ultimate victory is not convincing someone to stay. The ultimate victory is knowing that you are already whole. You are not a temporary stop in someone's life. You are not a backup option. You are not someone who has to beg to be chosen. You are the person worth choosing. If they are willing to grow and meet you where you stand, that can be beautiful. But if they are not, you no longer have to chase them into the distance. You can remain grounded. You can remain steady. You can remain complete. Make this shift once. Bring your energy back home, not to control them, not to make them chase you, but to save yourself. Take back your power, let go of the rope, and see what happens when you stop making yourself constantly available to someone who never realized your value while you were there. Thank you for watching. If this message connected with you and you are ready to stop chasing and start choosing yourself, make sure to like this video and subscribe to The Avoidant Guide. Your journey back to yourself begins today.